Today is Thursday, September 4th, 2025. This is Quick Start from CBN News. I'm Dan Andros. The missing Epstein minute has been found. We'll have that top story and more on today's podcast, where we bring you news from a Christian perspective. Subscribe, leave a rating, all that good stuff. You know what to do. You can email us as well. quickstartpodcast@cbn.org. We actually read that, so go ahead and send us an email, quickstartpodcast@cbn.org. Joining me today to get through the news of the day, CBN's Billy Hallowell, Trey Goins-Phillips. A lot to get to, as always, gentlemen. On the focus story, as we see all this anti-Semitism around the globe rising, there is one organization taking some action.
Yes, Passages Israel. We'll get into what they're doing and why it matters today.
All right, looking forward to the details on that coming up in just a moment. Also, on the main thing, Jen Psaki and others have been criticizing thoughts and prayers in the wake of the latest mass shooting. A Columbine survivor stopped by to give us their response. We'll get to all of that and more coming up in 30 seconds.
My papa says the Messiah isn't real. He's just a story.
So what do you believe?
From the Salvation Poem Project comes Light of the World.
I really liked that movie.
You're really going to want your fam to see this. It's Jesus' life, so clear and so fun.
I want to see it again.
See the hand-drawn animated film everyone's talking about.
He's the king of all kings!
He's nothing.
He is the light of the world.
Light of the World. Opening in theaters this Friday. Rated PG.
And we'll go to the news now in 90 seconds. The missing minute from Jeffrey Epstein's prison cell has finally surfaced. New surveillance video released by the House Oversight Committee shows the minute-long gap outside Epstein's cell the night he died in 2019, contradicting the Justice Department's earlier explanation. The clip, part of more than 33,000 pages of Epstein-related files, had been absent from an earlier DOJ release, sparking conspiracy theories that evidence was being covered up. At the time, Attorney General Pam Bondi claimed the missing segment was due to a nightly camera reset, but the new footage suggests it was simply a timestamp rollover at midnight. Nothing unusual is seen in the video, but the earlier omission fueled years of speculation around Epstein's death. The fresh release comes as lawmakers push for the DOJ to make all unclassified Epstein records public, keeping the case and its many unanswered questions firmly in the spotlight. And deadly U.S. strike rattles. Venezuela. President Trump has confirmed a rare military operation in the southern Caribbean that destroyed a drug smuggling vessel linked to Venezuela's Tren de Aragua gang. 11 were killed in the strike. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says this is just the beginning. Those are some of today's top headlines. You can check out more stories over at cbnnews.com. Guys, a lot going on. The big news, obviously, this week that dropped, one of them anyway, was the latest in the Epstein saga. I'm starting to wonder what to even make of all the twists and turns this case has gone through.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, do you want conspiracy theories? Like, is that the goal? Because it's like every step that's taken, it seems to be one that sparks that. You know, and it doesn't help when the government, and look, we're all humans, we make mistakes, when our narrative and explanation isn't lining up with what's actually happening on the ground. And this has been the problem with this story and many others like it from the beginning. Whether there is smoke where there's fire or not, it just is unhelpful to not have the truth be given to us.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just a lack of organization, right? You know, the left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing when it comes to stuff like this, especially when it's something that's high profile. It's like, okay, the full Trump administration needs to be unified in how we're handling this, what information we're going to release. What was crazy to me at the height of all of this was seeing the departments talk to each other publicly, right? It was like Pam Bondi was saying stuff to Kash Patel and vice versa. It's like, don't have these conversations behind closed doors, and then you bring a unified narrative. This is what you say together. And if if somebody raises a question about another person's department, you refer them to that department. You don't start spewing your own opinions on these things. So I think more than I don't know that I buy that there is all this cover up and there's all this information that's being hidden. I think really it was a lack of unification and discipline in how they released this information and how they handled the narrative.
Well, and there was a lot of outside pressure on getting answers for the Epstein files. So there perhaps in that pressure was a rush to do something, and mistakes were made amid that rush. And so now then that just fuels even more. When the conspiracy fire is embering and growing, and then you do this and you have a misstep, you're just pouring gasoline onto that thing. And now the damage is really hard to undo, and it's just a whole mess going forward.
Well, yeah, and the thing about a conspiracy theory is a conspiracy theory by nature is never satisfied, right? So it's like, okay, you've satisfied this one thing, but there's probably more. Like you're probably now in on it. That's why you have this information.
That is exactly what somebody on the conspiracy would do.
Right.
Wow.
That's my point. That you can never there is never enough information to satiate a conspiracy theory. And that's not to say that I don't buy into some. Like there could be a few that I could be persuaded on, and there's probably some truth to them. But you have to kind of go in knowing, okay, I kind of buy into this conspiracy theory, and I'm going to accept that I'm never going to get an answer that fully satisfies me.
Yeah, and you should listen. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, and with the victims sort of speaking out now and pushing for, those documents to come out, there may be absolutely nothing in them, but I think it's going to be interesting to see how the story unfolds. And to your point earlier, Trey, this is a leadership issue. Like you have to have you have to be on the same page and have communication. And it's not like this is a hangnail. This is one of the biggest issues hanging over this administration over the last couple months. So to not be organized on that's a little alarming to me.
Yeah, sure is. And I'm sure we're going to see more details on this as well. It'll probably take a few more twists and turns before we don't get to the bottom of it and just have more conspiracy theories. So anyway, I kid and I digress. But we are going to move on now to the focus story. And amid rising anti-Semitism across the globe, there is an American organization that's out there equipping young Christians to take a stand. So what's the story?
Yeah, we've got Zach Bauer. He's the CEO of Passages. This is an organization that does a whole bunch of things, really educating young Christians, bringing young people to Israel, and helping them understand important biblical matters. We had a conversation with Zach about what he's trying to accomplish through Passages. And, I think it's interesting in light of all the anti-Semitism that there's this organization really trying to equip young Christians, because that is where we see a lot of the anti-Israel sort of rhetoric has been even reaching those young Christians, where they're having perspectives and thoughts about Israel that might not actually be accurate to what is happening on the ground. So that is their entire premise there at Passages, just to sort of equip and get these young people to understand what's truly happening in the Middle East.
So what has Bauer most alarmed right now?
Yeah, the thing that has him most alarmed is he said, he started in this position in January, and that when he first started, the main concern was addressing what he called anti-Semitism on the left. And he said that they knew there were some factions on the right that were sort of kind of boiling under the surface, but that they're seeing comments made and they're hearing from some prominent figures what he would call anti-Semitic and anti-Israel sentiment. And so he said there's been a shift in the recent months that really this anti-Semitism, anti-Israel sentiment on the right has gone into overdrive. And now you have it on both sides of the aisle. And so this is something that his organization is needing to confront, because they want to make sure that young Christians are prepared to stand for the truth. He said right-leaning students at colleges and universities, we want to make sure they're hearing the facts. We want to make sure that they have the facts and are not going to be easily swayed to believe some of the things that they're hearing. And so that has him concerned for sure.
What are some ways young people are being engaged right now?
So one of the things they recently did was this Passages DC experience. They had 150 college students from across the country attend the conference. It was at the Museum of the Bible, and they brought in all sorts of speakers. They had former Vice President Mike Pence, and he said the main goal was to sort of train and equip these students to be able to go back to their campuses and be effective pro-Israel advocates. So they really want them to be able to not only fight back, but to identify anti-Semitism on campus and then push back. So that is one way that they're doing it with the Passages DC experience. They're also, again, running trips over to Israel. They have been in the past, where they're sort of showing the students firsthand what Israel is like. And part of this is, of course, also battling against negative news coverage. He brought up the example of, from Gaza, the photo of the child and the mother that the New York Times ran. And he said, look, it comes out later on that the child had pre-existing medical conditions. They want to make sure that young people understand how the media narrative also shapes some of this. So lot to unpack there, but they're doing a lot of great work on the ground.
Well, and there's a lot to combat too, because even just the other day, Coldplay's Chris Martin was bringing guests from just random fans from the stands onto stage, asked two girls where they're from. They say Israel. The crowd boos. A lot of them booed. And then Chris Martin just had a very cringy sort of moment saying, well, I treat you as humans here from the planet Earth. And then if anyone else is from Palestine, we should invite them up too. It was like he was so mortified that somebody who was Jewish was on his stage. And that's the sort of thing that you're dealing with here in culture right now. I mean, this is one of the most popular musicians and bands on the planet. And that's the reaction you get just from being from the state of Israel. It's just, you can't even, it's very hard to quantify what Jews are facing right now.
Yeah. And part of me wondered when I saw that clip too, I thought, did he get caught up in the moment of shock? I mean, he's had a few things happen at these concerts of late, obviously. Right. Did he get shocked by the booing, and he was trying to find a way to hey, you're a human being. Nobody should be booing you. And he accidentally sort of came across the way he did. I
think he was trying to be, he didn't word it well. I think he was trying to play the middle. I think he attempted to do that. But I think what was happening in his mind was he was saying, okay, this is a controversial topic and I need to try to be balanced. And then he ended up coming across condescending. But I think what's concerning is he couldn't just let it be and just say, let it be. You're from Israel. Oh, from Israel. Great. Awesome. Great to have you here. Why couldn't you just do that?
And all my Palestinians in the audience. Yeah,
right.
Gosh.
It was like you could tell he was trying to censor because in his mind, what he's probably been trained is Israel bad. And so he was trying to, okay, it doesn't matter where you're from. You're a human being who happens to be from there. He was trying to make that all work in his mind. But I think the starting point was Israel bad.
Yeah. I think we live in a world now where sharing your ethnicity or your heritage is a political statement in and of itself that needs to be, talked about and commented on, that's kind of a scary place to be. I think we have been there as a country and as a society, and seeing some of that in how we're treating people from Israel, like just stating I'm from the country of Israel. Oh my goodness. I don't know what to say. I'm tripping over my words. I'm super uncomfortable. That's a weird response, no matter how you handle it. I think that's odd.
It's a very weird response.
As far as the story that you were breaking down there, Billy, I think it's so important to have stuff like this because being armed with information is how best to combat this anti-Semitism. I mean, there are people now in 2025 when we have the internet and Holocaust museums and so much data are denying that the Holocaust ever happened. So being armed to say, actually, you're crazy. Here is, proof positive. This is how the Jewish people have been treated from Bible times to 2025. This is all real stuff. These are real experiences. And as cliche as it sounds, it is true that it's harder to hate up close, right? Once you learn the history that people have actually gone through, the things people have experienced, I think giving people that information, it's not going to help everybody. There are some crazies who are always going to be crazy. But for some people, getting accurate information can be really helpful to softening their perspective and realizing, you know what, maybe I drank the mainstream media Kool-Aid and I should take a step back here.
Yeah. Final thoughts on this, Billy?
Yeah, look, we need more organizations like this doing this hard work. And I love the fact that they're targeting young Christians who really, when you look at the polls, are getting sucked into this misinformation. So I agree, Trey. And I think we got to be praying for Passages, and people can go to passagesisrael.org for more information.
All right. Appreciate you bringing that one to the podcast today, Billy. All right. Do thoughts and prayers matter after a tragedy? We have the response from someone who survived Columbine. That conversation's coming up in 30 seconds.
My papa says the Messiah isn't real. He's just a story.
So what do you believe?
From the Salvation Poem Project comes Light of the World.
I really liked that movie.
You're really gonna want your fam to see this. It's Jesus' life so clear and so fun.
I want to see it again.
See the hand-drawn animated film everyone's talking about.
He's the king of all kings.
He's nothing.
He is the light of the world.
Light of the World. Opening in theaters this Friday. Rated PG.
Columbine survivor Evan Todd is pushing back hard against critics who dismiss thoughts and prayers. He says that narrative is not only wrong, but dangerous, and he's got a powerful message dismantling it. He shares it with Billy on today's Main Thing.
You and I go way back, and we've talked a lot about this issue of prayer. It feels like, though, every time an event happens, and you went through personally one of the most, it was probably the first big, horrific school shooting event. You are a survivor of the Columbine High School shooting in 1999. And after every one of these events, people will say, enough of your thoughts and prayers. But it felt like this last one that just happened, the intensity of the anti-prayer rhetoric really seemed to kick up a bit. What was your reaction to that?
You know, it's heartbreaking. It's, I think, despicable. I think it's revealing of the people who are doing it. Because I have my own story and my going through Columbine and surviving, and I just know what prayers and thoughts and prayers did in my life. I've seen miracles work. I've seen prayers from that very day that have been answered, and in the aftermath, one of the things that was just so comforting was knowing that the nation at the time was sending thoughts and prayers. And I could feel that in my soul. It was uplifting, encouraging. You know, it made me realize that although I just saw the most evil and saw death, I stared death in the face, I could still see the humanity and love that was in the world. And that was really a good piece of the healing process that got me to realize that, life isn't all bad, and there are people. And then as I thought about it over the years, this is like one of the most amazing things, that someone would take a time out of their day and appeal to the creator of the universe on your behalf. And to me, that was so empowering and gave me so much motivation. And it also helped me turn back to finding, in my search for answers, there were a lot of things. But the thing that really, gets me when I hear politicians and talking heads, saying thoughts and prayers aren't enough, or enough of that, or however they phrase it, the thing that just dawned on me on this last horrific tragedy was these politicians are basically saying, step aside, God, we'll handle it from here. And that, to me, that's what's got us in the first, that's the human condition. You go through modern times, biblical times. Whenever someone starts to rely on their own understandings and their own ways, then evil things and horrible things follow. And so that's exactly what got us into this, situation or era that we have in America. If now more than ever is the time to, turn to God and pray and ask for things. And, and it's not a magical thing where whatever you ask for becomes true, but prayer is very important.
Yeah, and what you talked about there in your own experience, I don't want to make you go back through and recount every detail of that day, but I want people to understand the intensity of what went on. You were in the library where most of the carnage happened, the majority of it. You saw things nobody should ever have to see. You were shot. You went through it. And for you to walk away from that and feel the power of prayer is incredibly powerful in light of what you faced. When you think through, and especially this last shooting, the young kids who were when you were in high school when Columbine happened, you were a young kid, but even kids who were younger than that, who saw those things, what goes through your heart and your mind as you sort of process, especially with this whole prayer conversation, what those kids and those adults need right now to recover and recapture hope after that?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions, and it may be a lifetime full of questions. But I would say turn to God. He has the answers. He has the truth and the way. And, and that's something that prayer helps you connect with the Creator, with Christ. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult, and trying to understand that why someone would do this, and that's a part of the prayer side when people are attacking it is, God is the one who is providing an answer and a way to live that is full of abundance and life and joy and peace. And people decide not to live that way. And that's their decision, not God's. He didn't create that. And so, yeah, there's going to be a lot of questions, and there's going to be times when you need things. And I think the most beneficial thing that I have done is when I need those, when I have those times and have gone through those, valleys, especially, I turn to the Word, turn to prayer, and to others.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting kind of going back to why we pray. It seems like there's a fundamental misunderstanding, because the first thing that happens after a shooting is calls for gun control, right? And calls for action. We have to take action. And a lot of people will say that. And those same people, some of them will also say enough of your thoughts and prayers. I think there's this misconception that the only prayers that people are saying is that we don't, God, please stop the school shooting. Please stop the shooter from going in. Of course, those are prayers that are fine but that's not the majority of why people are calling for prayer. And I want you to fill in any blanks, push back on this, whatever, is because they're asking for peace, for God to come alongside people like you who have gone through the unthinkable, to give them peace, to guide them, to provide peace to the country, we're all horrified when these events happen, and to sustain you. And you felt that. Why do you think that a lot of these politicians and leaders fail to understand that bigger piece of why people are praying?
Well, you'll know them by their fruits. And the fact of the matter is that enough with the thoughts and prayers has become a political tagline that is being used for nothing more than marketing their ideology that they want to push on this country. And that is, taking away guns. And so the fact that they don't understand prayer, they don't understand that really the most important part about prayer is not changing your circumstances, but changing you, changing your heart, drawing you nearer to the one who made you, and finding truth. They don't understand that fact of it. And the sickest thing, I would think it was the mayor who said that these kids were literally praying when they were shot. Well, yeah, they were children. They were probably sitting in there thanking, for their sandwich and understanding, because they were just learning about this world. When that horrific thing starts happening, it's like I said, it's not a magic pill that stops everything in its tracks, and so the fact that they use this over and over to think that they can push a political agenda is, like I said, despicable. And the one thing I would say to my brothers and sisters in Christ, that don't let them discourage you. Don't let that narrative, because that can happen, being repeated and repeated in the media, discourage your prayer life or your outreach or even your thoughts. Because like I said, I've seen prayers. I've prayed for safer schools. And over the 20 plus years since Columbine, schools have gotten safer in America. We have armed staff, we have medical training, we have better protocols, and if they say thoughts don't matter, they do matter. Because I've seen people, especially anecdotally from Columbine, there were people who went through that experience and they thought they had their thoughts and prayers. A lot of them went on to become doctors and nurses, and they're saving lives today because of people's thoughts and prayers, because of their own thoughts and prayers, because of the change that it makes in people's lives.
All right, appreciate that conversation there. And that's going to leave us with time on the podcast today for one last thing.
We've got Ezekiel 36:24. I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you into your own land. That is an Old Testament verse, obviously, that many people believe came to fruition in prophecy in 1948 with the recreation of Israel, and just a powerful reminder of the power of prophecy.
Yeah, it's cool to see the Old and the New Testament all coming together and seeing the fulfillment of Scripture sometimes in real time is pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even extending that to all the prophecies in the Old Testament of Christ. So cool to see Scripture tying it all together, proven right time and time again. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Quick Start Podcast. As always, make sure you're getting yourself daily on over to cbnnews.com, faithwire.com, Also, faithwire.substack.com. We are praying through the news of the day. Come join us there. We'd appreciate it. God bless. See you back there tomorrow.